Have you ever been driving down the road and seen a small sign on the side of the road that says part-time janitor on a bright piece of poster board? You might think it's a scam, or maybe something that's too good to be true. I'm here to tell you that it is much worse than you expected. I took a job that was something more than I could ever bargain for. This is that story. My name is Damon, a high school dropout that became addicted to prescription pills. I know, I sound like a real winner. However, I was panhandling on the side of a busy street when a man in a dark suit placed the previously mentioned poster board on a telephone pole. It simply read part-time janitor, call, insert number here. I figured the job would be better than panhandling on the side of the road, so I popped into the closest convenience store and gave the number a call. I was immediately asked to come in for an interview with no hesitation. It was a bit of a walk, but I eventually got there in less than an hour. Being a panhandler, I did not look my best, but I decided to go for it anyway. I met with a woman named Carly. She was the head of HR, 5'0", wearing a pleated pencil skirt, a navy blazer, and had her hair in a bun with 2 pencils inserted very old school. She asked me to come into her office for an interview. The interview went like so. Damien, thank you so much for your interest in the part-time janitor position. I understand that you heard about this position because of our latest marketing strategy, which is road signs. This job would take place between the hours of 7 p.m. and 12 a.m. Monday through Friday. You can come and work on Saturdays at the same time if you wish, and the job starts at $30 an hour. I was shocked at how much they pay part-time janitors at this place. Also, if I wanted extra hours that was available, this job did sound too good to be true. I then asked her if she needed a driver's license, a background check, or proof of residence, anything really. She began to laugh. No sir, all we need is for you to sign the contract in front of you, and you can start this evening or tomorrow, whichever works better for you. Considering it was a Tuesday, I figured I could start tonight, and that way I would have a pretty good sized paycheck. And if I worked on Saturday, that would be a full work week. I signed my name on the dotted line and told her I would be back this evening. She shook my hand warmly and gave me 2 sets of work uniforms. Right as I was about to leave, she stopped me. Damien, is all she said, once again saying my name incorrectly before I turned around. She walked over and handed me 2 $100 bills. Puzzled, I asked her what it was for. She once again laughed and said, "Well, your sign-on bonus, silly." I nodded when I understood. That $200 could buy me a couple of nights at the motel across the street. That way I would have a bed to sleep in, the ability to take a shower, and have a place to put my feet on the ground. Things were looking up. I went directly across the street and booked a room for a couple of nights, which came to $150 total. This gave me enough money to get something to eat and something with caffeine, which I was going to need for a shift like this. I went across the lobby and bought a few things from the vending machine. I checked into my room and slept for a few hours, bought some toiletries from the lobby, took a shower, grabbed a cup of coffee, and started my new job across the street. Since it was after hours, there wasn't really anybody there. Just a couple of people in their cubicles working late. And of course Carly was there to give me a quick rundown of my job before she headed out herself. "Welcome back, Damien. I hope you're eager to get to work," she said with a smile. She showed me where the janitor's closet was as she handed me a set of keys. She showed me what each individual key did. Obviously this is the one for the janitor's closet. These 3 right here are for the private offices. This one to the front door, and this one to the back. Lastly, this one is the break room. She then handed me a map and showed me where everything was in the office. "Have a good shift, and I'll see you around," she said as she grabbed her purse and hummed to herself through the front doors. She was an odd character, but she was friendly. I had had a job as a janitor for a church before, but was laid off after the pastor caught me in the bathroom overdosing. So I kind of knew the rundown on how to do janitorial duties. Also, it wasn't rocket science to know how to use a mop, and for $30 an hour, I was going to take my sweet time. I started sweeping each individual room, clean the bathrooms, that kind of thing. Before I knew it, I had worked halfway through my shift. Smack dab in the middle was a 15-minute break, so I took advantage of that by visiting the vending machines. My feast consisted of a bag of M&Ms, Jack Link's teriyaki beef jerky, and a can of Baja Blast. It's more than I was used to eating, especially as of late. After that, I got right back to work. I felt it was time for me to conquer the second floor by repeating the process. After I completed the second and third floors, I would go back down and mop each individual floor. That should be enough time for me to finish my shift. It was kind of eerie being all by myself towards the latter part of my evening, but it was nice and quiet. After cleaning the second and third floors, I hopped back on the elevator when all of a sudden there was a button I had never seen before on the elevator. It was the fourth floor. Curious and confused, I decided to go ahead and push the button. Knowing what I know now, I wish I hadn't. The anticipation built climbing up to the fourth floor in the elevator. The doors slowly opened to a room that felt very out of place. It was an office, but something about it felt off. Whether it was the lighting, the wallpaper, or the shit brown floors. It was just odd, and that's the best way that I can describe it. The lights were so bright it turned everything practically blue, which definitely clashed with the wallpaper and the floors. "Hello, is there anybody there?" "It's me, Damon. I'm the new janitor." I shouted into the void. All that I was met with were echoes and no response. That's when I heard a door slowly creak open. Once again, I addressed myself, and the response I received was, "You need to leave." This was repeated at least 3 more times before I started hearing footsteps running towards me. I turned around to get on the elevator, and it was gone. Only a wall stood with a giant clock taking the place of the elevator. I decided to book it and try to hide behind some office furniture or an unlocked room. I could hear the footsteps getting closer and closer. I needed to act fast. That's when I noticed one of the cubicles that didn't have a chair, so I ran towards it and ducked underneath the desk. Right as I got underneath it once again, the voice repeated, "You need to leave." They were right next to the cubicle, but they didn't see me as they took off running in the opposite direction. I was trying so hard not to breathe heavy, because I was out of breath and scared at the same time. I poked my head up, and that's when I noticed the calendar pinned to the cubicle wall. The date read July 12th, 2000. First of all, it was November 2nd, and it was definitely not the year 2000. I just chalked it up to somebody that didn't get the memo 26 years later to throw their calendar away. I started sneaking around the cubicles in hopes of not getting caught. When I entered the break room, that's when I saw the figure. It was wearing a black raincoat and wielding a metallic flashlight. It turned around quickly and hit me directly in the face with the beam of the flashlight. I couldn't get a good look. "You need to leave," it said once again as it charged at me. Stunned by the light, it tackled me to the ground. I tried to fight my way off, but it had me pinned. That's when I noticed it had a mustache. It wasn't an it, this was a human being. The name tag read Carl. "Carl, is your name Carl?" He let up and backed away when I said his name. "Yes, that's my name." I asked him what he was doing here, and an even better question, what was this place? "You need to leave," is all he said again. I asked him why I needed to leave. "You don't understand. You need to leave." He shouted at me again. "Help me understand, Carl. Why do I need to leave?" With tears in his eyes, he just pointed at the clock. I cranked my head back and looked at it as well. "What's the significance of the clock, Carl?" He answered my question with another question. "What time is your shift over?" I told him that it was over at midnight. As the giant second hand of the clock began to tick towards the 12, the moment it hit midnight, Carl gasped and said, "We're out of time." He began crying as he shoved me. "You stupid son of a bitch, you should have left when I told you," he said as he was wiping the snot from his nose. "What are you talking about?" is all I could ask him. "Once your shift is over, you are sealed in this place. You are stuck here until the next part-time janitor is hired. If the janitor enters the 4th floor, he must leave before the end of his shift. Only then will we be set free," Carl said to me with doom in his throat. That's when I glanced at the calendars on the wall and noticed that July 12th, 2000 had turned into November 3rd, 2026. That means Carl had been stuck up here for 26 years. I was his only ticket out, and I blew it. Now we are both stuck here in limbo until another savior passes through those elevator doors. Carl informed me that once a week, Carly restocks the vending and coffee machines. She's free to come and go as she pleases, but I must stay until another part-time janitor enters. All I could think was how confusing it is that Carly would be the one to do all this. I asked if it was some duty that she had to fulfill, or if it was really part of her job. Carl wasn't sure. How it had taken 26 years for another part-time janitor to come up here, neither one of us knew. All I know is I went from being homeless on the streets to homeless on a floor that doesn't exist. I have thought about killing Carly the next time I saw her, however, that feeling was fleeting, because if she is our source of nourishment, I can't do anything rash like that. So if you're reading this composition notebook, I have either successfully gotten out with Carl, or I've killed myself. You may never know, and whatever you do, don't. Go on. The 4th floor.
Well, Miss Coleman, I am truly impressed with the paper in front of me. If I'm not being too forward, I would love to offer you a job immediately. Those were the last words Donovan Creighton said to me before offering me a job at his realty company. I had worked really hard by getting a degree in business, and I've always wanted to be a real estate agent. Graduating from the University of Tennessee, go Vols! I've always stayed right here in Knoxville. This is my home, this is my community, and I believe I can serve a purpose for it. Mr. Creighton showed me around the office and introduced me to the staff. The last person he introduced me to was Claire. She was built up as the best realtor in the business, and I would be shadowing her for the foreseeable future. Claire is our miracle worker. Mr. Creighton started. Any home that is available on the market, no matter the price, year it was built, or the neighborhood it's in, Claire always finds a way to sell the house above the property's value. She stood right in front of me like a rock star. Salon-quality brunette hair, manicured nails, and rocking a 3-piece suit. She was gorgeous, radiating confidence, and I knew this is exactly who I wanted to show me the ropes. "Hello, Rebecca. My name is Claire Ashford," Claire said to me as she reached out her hand to shake. I shook her hand so quickly, and though I just met her, I was starstruck. "Today you will go with me to show a house. This house is a bit of a fixer-upper, but if you stick with me, I'll show you how to take any fixer-upper and treat it like you were showing a mansion." Every word she spoke to me was like honey butter, smooth and sweet. She told me that I could ride with her to the showing. When we got to the parking lot, she walked right up to the nicest car. It was a brand new Tesla. Right as we got to it, Mr. Creighton walked to his car to go to lunch, and his was a beaten-down 2003 Pontiac Grand Am. You could definitely tell who the real rock star was of the company. I got in the car and we proceeded to drive to one of the less desirable parts of the neighborhood. All right, Rebecca, the people we're showing the house to are named Brad and Priscilla. They are newlyweds who just graduated from the University of Florida. Brad has family here, so they moved back to Knoxville. Once again, the house we are showing is a bit of a fixer-upper, but I'm hoping to get it sold today. There she goes again, being sweet and smooth. All I could do was bob my head up and down in agreement with every word she said. We pulled up to the house, and she wasn't kidding. It was definitely run down. I looked at the paperwork, and we were trying to sell it for close to $1 million. It was a 4-bedroom, 3.5 bath, and a 3-car garage. I guess Claire was going to prove that she was in fact a miracle worker. Leaning up against a red F-150, I saw Brad and Priscilla. They had smiles on their faces, and they couldn't keep their hands off each other. Brad was wearing a long-sleeve button-down shirt, boots, jeans, and a cowboy hat. Priscilla, with flowing blonde hair, was wearing a white and yellow striped sundress and yellow heels to match. They were such a cute couple. Claire and I walked right up to them, and she started showing them the house. Each room we got into looked worse and worse. There was a distinct smell in the air and cracks all over the walls. There is no way in hell that this house is going to get sold for almost $1 million, I thought to myself. "Rebecca, could you please stay in the kitchen with Brad? I have to show Priscilla a specific area in the spare bedroom." Claire said to me with a huge smile on her face. I agreed to do so as Claire and Priscilla disappeared upstairs. Brad and I awkwardly stood in the kitchen. So, the University of Florida? I said to him. He started chuckling. Yeah, they offered me a better scholarship, otherwise I would have stayed home. My dad still gives me shit for not being a volunteer. However, if I didn't go, I never would have met Priscilla. It was romantic and very touching. As soon as he said that, Priscilla and Claire made their appearance known with the sound of 2 sets of heels coming down the wood stairs. Bradley, let's make this our forever home, Priscilla said with a smile and misty eyes. He then chuckled once again. All right, Pris, you're the financial literate of the two. We'll take it, he said, looking over at Claire. Claire had a big smile on her face. Wonderful. Meet me back at Creighton's and we'll start the paperwork. I couldn't believe it. He definitely was a miracle worker. After a few months, I was finally approved to start showing homes on my own. However, I had yet to sell a single home because Claire swoops in and takes every deal. There are a few other agents that work at Creighton's, and every time I have a question they always defer to Claire. Even when I go to Donovan, whose name is on the building for Christ's sakes, I'm told to go to Claire. It's like the entire universe revolves around her and I can't quite figure out why. I make a good salary, but having a little bit of commission on top would be great. I finally showed a house a few blocks away from the office and I closed the deal. Mr. Creighton informed me that I was the first realtor outside of Claire to sell a house in well over a year. He told me if I didn't sell the house, then he was probably going to have to let me go. He actually considered downsizing to only having 2 agents. Even though I was the new girl, he decided to keep just Claire and myself, letting go of the other 3 agents. It was heartbreaking because I had bonded with these people and now they were gone. A few days later, I was at the grocery store and I accidentally collided my basket with someone. After apologizing, I looked up and it was Priscilla. She looked disheveled, wearing baggy clothes, and in her basket were 3 cans of Chef Boyardee and a loaf of generic bread. Hey Priscilla, do you remember me? I'm Rebecca from Creighton's Realty. Priscilla, with dark sunken eyes and not a sign of makeup anywhere, looked at me. You bitches ruined my life. I was taken aback and asked her to please explain. You and that siren Claire sold me a house in disrepair. On top of student loans, we paid 6 figures to get the house repaired. The foundation was shot and there was black mold in the basement. Priscilla said through clenched teeth. I remembered the cracks in the walls as well as the smell. I think she was right. And the cherry on top of the fucking sundae, Brad left me. He wrote me a letter saying that he couldn't deal with the finances any longer, and that he decided to run for the hills. I once again apologized, but for a different reason. I informed her that I was just shadowing and had nothing to do with the deal. I offered to buy her a cup of coffee so that we could discuss it further. Begrudgingly, she obliged and met me across the street at Starbucks. As we sat on the patio, I told her to go into more detail. After taking a sip of her caramel macchiato, she took a deep breath and began to speak. I didn't even want the house at first, however. I think I was seduced into buying it, she said as she glanced down at her cup. She shot her eyes up at me and continued, Claire did something to me. She did something that makes me sick even to this day. Puzzled, I told her to please continue. While you and Bradley were in the kitchen, Claire took me into the spare bedroom. After I told her that we weren't interested in how crappy the house was, she walked over to me, brushed my hair behind my ear and whispered, Come on, beautiful, you know you want this house. She then kissed me on the lips, and I lost all control of myself for a few hours. She said in conclusion. What she said to me was shocking. Claire was no miracle worker, she was a seducer. I told Priscilla that I would be in touch as I ran out of that Starbucks like it was on fire. I got back to the office and began going through the files. Every single closing, Claire had sold the house above value, and the details about the inspections were hidden from Mr. Creighton. She probably seduced the inspectors as well. Black mold, terrible foundation, bad electrical work. It didn't matter, Claire sold every single house. The people she sold them to eventually either had to foreclose or file for bankruptcy. This woman was destroying lives. With the paperwork and Priscilla's testimony, I was going to bring this bitch down. Before going to Mr. Creighton, I decided to have a private conversation with Claire in the break room. I sat in there for a good while before she strutted in like she was on a runway in Paris. "Claire, may I speak with you?" I asked her as she poured a cup of coffee in her tumbler. "Sure, doll face, what can I do for you?" she responded. I took a deep breath and walked over to her, and in a hushed tone I said, "How do you do it? I'm onto you. These houses you're selling are in shambles, and you find a way to sell every single one of them. You're destroying lives. How do you sleep at night?" Claire's smile turned immediately into malice. She whispered into my ear, "Usually naked on silk sheets. I have my ass out so that subs like you can kiss it even while I'm sleeping." Stunned by her response, she continued, "Listen, Rebecca, I know it's just you and me working here, but don't fuck this up for me. Mr. Creighton is going to retire after the Christmas party, and he's offering the business to me." She leaned in closer and finished by saying, "And when that happens, I'm going to fire your ass and leave this company to myself." She then turned around, walked out of the break room, and slammed the door. The Christmas party was next week. I needed to bring her down and fast. I took all of my findings and anonymously sent copies to the local news. I also was able to find someone on a local Facebook page that had a grievance with Claire. They had made a post stating that she was a crook. I privately messaged them and gave them the floor. They had told me the exact same story that Priscilla told me. I then sent them a PDF document with all the information to take her down. They told me they felt validated and thanked me for what I was doing. 2 days before the Christmas party, Mr. Creighton called us into his office. Claire walked in and I was right behind her. She did not look happy. He told me to close the door behind me, as if there was anybody else in the office to hear our conversation. He began by rubbing his temple and letting out a big sigh. "It has been brought to my attention that Claire has been swindling people. You've somehow convinced our customers to ruin their finances and worst of all their lives just so you can make a quick buck. I don't know how you do it, and I don't want to accuse you of anything you haven't done. However, after consideration, a few phone calls, and a call from a news reporter, Claire, I'm ultimately going to have to let you go." Claire immediately shot out of her chair and began to scold Mr. Creighton. "You weak old man. You're going to take the loyalty and the amount of money I brought to this office away because somebody with a moral compass got their panties in a twist." She then glanced over at me and finished her sentence by saying, "Before I leave, I just have one more thing to say, and that is fuck you both." She took her name badge off her blouse and threw it at Mr. Creighton. After that day, I never saw her again. A few weeks went by and we had to eventually hire all 3 of our realtors back, and Mr. Creighton had to postpone his retirement another year. He told me if I played my cards right that I would eventually own the company when it's all said and done. After he said that, I went home with a sense of accomplishment. I crawled into bed and turned on some Family Guy on Hulu before doom scrolling on Facebook. Right as I was about to go to sleep, I scrolled past an advertisement and slowly scrolled back up. There was a picture of Claire, except her hair was now blonde. The post read, "Bay Realty is pleased to welcome our newest agent, Juliet Michaels." I couldn't believe my eyes and I felt dread. I knew it was her, there was no doubt about it. I had won the battle here in Knoxville, but Claire was starting a whole new war in Florida. I couldn't sleep that night to save my life.
I am standing at the front entrance of a brand new card shop in town. It's called Mint Condition Card Shop. I'm here now with the owners Toby and Michelle Mint. The enthusiastic reporter stated, "Toby, I understand you're the brains behind the operation. Tell me a bit about yourself and the card shop." The reporter finished with a question as she pointed the microphone towards my face. "Well, Holly, as a fellow geek, I took it upon myself to open this card shop for better access to great things such as TCG, comic books, and other memorabilia like that." I cleared my throat a little bit before I continued. Being able to open a business like this would really make my younger self quite happy. I was picked on quite a bit as a kid. Hell, I'm still picked on as an adult. and I was picked on for liking what I liked. Now I have the opportunity to live a childhood dream. I concluded by adjusting my glasses on my face. Fascinating. Now Michelle, are you also into the same things that Toby is, or are you a behind-the-scenes kind of girl? Holly asked my wife. I like everything that Toby does, not to the same extent, but I understand the appeal. I do bookkeeping and social media, and Toby pretty much runs the storefront. My wife gave her statement by looking directly into the camera the entire time, a bit awkward, but I love her for that kind of thing. That's great to hear. Now Toby, of all the things that you have, what is your prized possession in the shop? While this question was being asked, the B-roll showed the shelves of the store, the register, and all of the customers interacting with the products. I began answering her question. Holly, if I'm being honest with you, it would probably be Michelle. I said as I gave my wife a squeeze. After sharing a giggle, I continued. But if I had to pick something related to the store, I would say this first edition holographic Charizard. I pulled it out of my back pocket in its case and showed it to the camera. The camera zoomed in as I tilted it to show the holographic glow. Wow, cool card. Holly responded with fake enthusiasm. As you can see, mint condition is in the name as well as the products. Reporting live for KRDR 14, this is Holly Cruz. I paused the video on my phone as my wife and I stood at the front counter watching the news clip. You did so good, baby. You also looked really handsome. Michelle said as she kissed me on the cheek. About as handsome as I can get with this gut and my sweaty Goku shirt. I responded jokingly. She just rolled her eyes at me and told me to shut up as she slugged me in the arm. The shop was already closed by the time the 10 o'clock news aired our segment, but we were hoping for the good exposure to bring in some customers the following day. After I put my phone away, I locked up all of the cases before turning off the lights. Did you get those toys into inventory? Michelle asked me. No, the Keyblade, lightsaber, and Master Sword have yet to see the light of day. I said to her as I pointed to a shelf with all 3 of them on it. That's okay, just make sure that's the first thing you do in the morning. She responded with a little bit of pep in her voice. As I nodded in agreement, I heard a crashing sound from the front. I ran all the way to the front door and it had been shattered with glass everywhere. Standing in front were 2 men in cheap Halloween masks and both brandishing shotguns. The bigger one of the 2 began to talk. Hello, my name is Ren and this is Stimpy. We're sorry to bother you after hours, but we're here for some very interesting valuables. As soon as he said that, he cocked his shotgun back. I stood there with my heart beating like a rabbit and hoping that Michelle did not come to the front of the store. Just as I thought that, I heard, "Toby, is everything all right?" She said that as she came around the corner and dropped the iPad she was using for bookkeeping. Toby is fine, he's just a little tired. So Stimpy here is going to walk y'all to the back office for a little R&R. Ren said as he pointed towards the back of the store. Stimpy started escorting us to the office. Now I want y'all to put your hands up like your lives depended on it, he said as he cocked his shotgun. Oh, and before we have some fun, I'm going to need that first edition Charizard, he said, pointing the gun at my chest. My blood ran cold as I reached into my back pocket and handed him the card. Wow, what a cool card, he said in a mocking tone, making fun of Holly from the news segment. I instantly knew that I had made a mistake by flashing that on live television. He took it and put it in his front jacket pocket. Now, keep moving. We walked slowly towards the back of the store where I had things yet to be inventoried. That's when Michelle accidentally stumbled over an Amazon box. Stimpy didn't like it and said, "Hey, watch where you're going," he said to her as he took the butt of the gun and hit her between the shoulder blades. This caused her to stumble and hit the floor. I don't know what it was, but something activated in me. In one fell swoop, I grabbed the keyblade off the inventory shelf and cracked him upside the head. With just one swing, he was down. I had knocked him out cold, if not outright killed him. As he fell into a bigger pile of Amazon boxes, he dropped the gun and it slid by my feet. I quickly put down the keyblade and grabbed the shotgun. I had never really shot a gun before, so I was a little shaky. Michelle got on her feet and was in awe at what I had just done. I told her to quickly get to the office and lock the door. "Do not unlock it until I tell you," I said to her with a firm voice. She silently swallowed and nodded as she ran into the office. With the commotion, Ren must have heard it. "Stimpy, is everything okay back there?" he asked as I could hear his heavy boots walking towards the back. He came around the corner and saw me standing there with the shotgun. I pulled the trigger and unfortunately the safety was on. Ren just stood there and laughed. "It's not very effective." In the time it took him to finish his sentence, I was able to turn off the safety. I took a deep breath and pulled the trigger. I shot him right in the chest. As he hit the floor, all I could say was, "No, it's super effective." I dropped the gun and walked up to the office door. I knocked on it and said, "Michelle, it's safe to come out now. Call the police." She then unlocked the door and told me, "I called them the second I got in here. Did you really just kill 2 men?" She asked me with tears in her eyes. "Yeah, I think I did. I did it for you, scratch that, I did it for us." As soon as I said that, I walked over to Stimpy's limp body. His head was in a pool of blood from where I hit him with the metal keyblade. I reached into his pocket and retrieved my card. After that, I could hear sirens getting closer in the distance. Luckily, we were in a state that had the stand your ground law, so I didn't think I would be doing any jail time. I kept asking myself how I could have possibly done what I did. The only answer I could come up with was because I was tired of being that little kid getting picked on for his hobbies. After decades of bottling it up, I just had to unleash it all. I channeled every cruel thing anybody ever said to me, every eye roll, every laugh, and became the nerdy John Wick. After about an hour of questioning from law enforcement, the news crews started showing up. I say crews as a double entendre, because Holly Cruz flew out of a news van like her hair was on fire. I've never seen a woman run in heels as fast as she did. She had to be the first to break the news. After asking me if I was all right and if anything was damaged, I told her everything was fine now. She asked if I would mind one more interview. I told her I would be delighted. The camera began to roll. Breaking news. Earlier today, I interviewed Toby and Michelle Mint of the Mint Condition Card Shop. This evening they were face to face with 2 masked robbers who claimed their names were Ren and Stimpy after the cartoon with the same name. Toby was able to fight them off using a keyblade replica as well as the would-be robber's own weapon. Holly glanced over at me with the microphone. "Toby, what do you have to say for yourself after tonight?" All I could do was look at my wife with a grin as I began to speak into the microphone. "Well, Holly, maybe they shouldn't have been heartless in their endeavors." Holly's jaw, as well as Michelle's, hit the floor, followed by Michelle laughing her ass off. You heard it here first. For KRJ14, this is Holly Cruz. Back to you in the studio. A few days went by and business was definitely booming. If I had $1 for every customer that told me they saw me on the news, I could probably retire a millionaire by next Tuesday. As I finished helping a customer with his purchase, I looked over and saw a chubby little kid with glasses wearing a Charizard t-shirt. He walked up to me and rested his elbows on the glass counter. "Are you Toby Mint?" he asked me with light in his eyes. "Why, yes I am." I responded to him. "I just came here to say that you're my hero," he said as he adjusted his glasses. He wiped underneath his eye and sniffled as he continued speaking. "You give me hope. Like you, I get made fun of for liking the things that I do," he said as he pointed to his shirt. And if I could grow up to be just like you, I would consider myself the luckiest kid in the world. I felt a little touched and saw myself in the boy. I turned around and grabbed a Charizard plushie off of the shelf and handed it to him. "What's your name?" I asked the child. "My name is Davy." He responded as he began to snuggle with the plushie. "Well, Davy," I began to say, "our courage will pull us through.